Hello everyone, this is Flymaster J-Man, and today we're going to talk about the ThinkPad 760 series. And this is a laptop series that's kind of near and dear to my heart. I'm a vintage computer collector and enthusiast, and this is one of the machines that I really like. And hopefully by the end of this video you'll be able to, if nothing else, understand why I like them, and hopefully maybe you'll like them too. So anywho, we're going to get right down to it. The ThinkPad 760 series was part of the 700 series ThinkPads by IBM. The first model was the ThinkPad 760C, which retailed for $5,349, and adjusted for inflation, that comes out to $9,059 in 2020 money. And it was a laptop aimed for the enterprise market and for the scientific community, and just generally for people with trash cans full of money, because you really did need quite a bit of money to get a laptop back then, and even more to get a high-end super modular laptop like this. You can see IBM really had the market on build quality back in those days, unless you were buying something like military spec or a Toughbook, which I'm not even sure they had Toughbooks back in '95. But this thing's really a cut above. This is the laptop I got as a hand-me-down from my grandfather when I was in middle school, and it survived that. It survived me as a 13-year-old kid lugging it around and just generally being maybe not as careful as I could have been to it, and it's held up pretty good. Everything on here still works, with the exception of the hard drive, which is starting to fail, and it's not the original hard drive by any means. So you see a lot of things on this laptop you just don't see in laptops much anymore. And we're going to start with the keyboard, because this is one of the things ThinkPads are famous for, is the really nice keyboards, and this one actually flips up. So if you look at the side here, you got this little slider. You can flip the keyboard up and down. And then if you don't want it getting flipped up, you can push it down and push this locking bit through, but I don't recommend doing that, because if you shut the lid with that, you can break it. Because when you shut the lid and then you open the lid, which is hard to do, I'm sorry for the horrible camera work, it flips the keyboard up for you, or at least it should. I don't know why mine didn't do that. If you shut the lid with the keyboard, it'll flip it back down. So we're going to talk about the build quality of this machine. It's very thick. It's made out of this rubberized coated plastic, which is in pretty good shape for its age, but it's a very heavy machine. It's a very thick machine, and even though it looks like it's made mostly out of plastic, it's made out of very durable plastic, and there's like metal underneath it. So it's still got metal bits and a metal frame, I believe, and a display that's still pretty solid with not a whole lot of swing in it. It's got a little bit, but not a terrible amount for its age. This machine here is the lower end spec. This chassis will only hold a floppy. It's not like the thicker chassis that will hold a CD, and I'll show you those machines a little bit later on. But the big party trick of the ThinkPad 760 and other ThinkPads of the era is if you take your screen latches and push both of them forward, and I'll get that one, you can access the internals. And from inside here, you can eject your modem. You can change your floppy disk drive for a battery, which in this model is about your only option. You really don't have much of an option for it. You can't run a CD in here because it won't fit. I mean, the connector's the same, but it won't fit. You have your battery, which is real easy to remove, and your hard disk. Now, normally there's a protective cover over the disk, but because this machine has had the hard disk swapped, that cover's gone. So you close it up, just press down on the speakers, and the palm rests there. You got your track point mice. You can lock them down. I don't know the specific application of why you're allowed to do that, but you can. You got your track point there. You got some function keys up here, and the blue function button allows you to change the mode of these keys so you can do various things to the computer while it's running. And then if we look at the sides of the laptop here, you have, first of all, you see that corner there. I told you I was probably a little rougher on this machine than I meant to be. You have your power slider. This is something you don't see on computers anymore. Now there's buttons for that. There's no sliders. You've got a headphone jack, a microphone jack, your modem. This knockout, which I'm not sure what this is for. If anyone knows, if you'd leave me a comment on that, I'd greatly appreciate it, because I've never been able to figure it out. You have floppy drive right there. IR port in the front. Kensington lock. And if you slide this over, it also locks this access door here, which is where your memory's at, and locks that from being opened and accessed. Your PC card slots, and a single slot for a mouse. Now I'll show you the I/O on the back of another machine, because this one here and the other machines have just slightly different I/O, but the other machine is in far better shape. So now over on the back of the machine, you have another IR port, you have your power port, and you have a slider over the dock connector. So that's how you hook to the selected dock, and you flip that down, and you've got a little port there that looks like a SCSI or a network port, but that's actually just your floppy disk connector, VGA, parallel, and serial. So even without a dock, this machine's pretty well equipped. But with a dock, it is extremely well equipped. However, the dock, and you'll see this when I show you that, here is the Select-A-Dock 3. This is the docking station for this machine, and it is an absolute beast. This gives you PCI and ISA expandability, SCSI, IDE, and it'll interface with the hard drives that come with the computer. When you slide off the top part, it allows you to access the internals, and in here, in this mess of ribbon cables, you have an IDE and SCSI cable. You have this tray here, which has a release in the back, allowing you to slide it through the front. And this allows you to run the IBM specific peripherals. You've got 2 slots there for hard drives and 1 slot for additional CD or a floppy. I have this set up with a floppy because I was using it for the CD model before I got another external floppy for the ThinkPads. And then to put it back together, you just slide this on and click it in. It has a key lock on it, and once locked, you cannot get the laptop off the docking station. It's got these hooks that hook into the bottom, and that not only helps keep it on the connector, but it also makes it hard to steal. And believe me, you're not running very fast holding this thing. Down here you have your status lights, speakers, a little door that I have no idea what that's for. If somebody knows what that's for, I'd love to know what that's about. Move over to the other side, you have a sound slider. You have, and I had to look off camera there, headphones, line in, line out, I believe. A MIDI port, more PC card slots, a SCSI port, and there's your ISA PCI bus slots. And the other side, yeah, the other side just has a cooling fan on it and nothing else. So I'm going to throw on a power cable, throw on a laptop, and I'll show you how this works in Windows, and we'll also see the operating system a little bit. Alrighty, so I have a machine slid into the dock here, and right now we've got it turned on. You see now there's an indicator on this screen, but it's not actually active yet. So once we turn it on, and sorry about the focus there, let's get that tuned in. It should pop to life. So I'm going to slide the power slider, which is really hard to do when you're not actually. And now we got the machines powered up. Here's our post screen. And sometimes these boot twice, or they run through that cycle. Now I don't know what operating system I have loaded on the hard disk here. It might be Windows 2000. We'll find out. Oh, it's Red Hat Linux. So I'm going to switch laptops real quick, put one on here that's running Windows. Just also wanted to show, when you go to remove a laptop from here and go ahead and shut the lid, you turn the key away from you, and these little plastic things push the laptop off. and it kind of slides on rails like a drawer, which is a nice feature considering the laptop itself is quite heavy. And if you were to pull it off the connector, you could probably do it, but it wouldn't work too well without releasing those feet. You'd probably mess the laptop up real bad. Now I'm going to reinstall and we'll restart. This here is our machine with the passive matrix display, and it also has a little bit more wear on the wrist guard, or palm rest, I should say, than the other machines. It's still a solid machine. This is set up, I believe, with Windows 98. Now we're going to have to play with the contrast sliders and all that fun stuff once it loads. There we go. Oh, contrast is way... Oh, we almost had it. Almost had it. Oh, I didn't get a good shot of that, dialing that in. So this is a passive matrix screen, and you'll see real quick why we don't use these anymore. But this was a lower cost option if you wanted it for this machine. And this is our EL model. You see when it's loaded, you got that display up there to give you the battery charge and the power. Oh, we're getting some 98 going. You see how slow that was to refresh? This type 0 error, I don't know what that is. Sounds like it's still booting though. Got a hard drive indicator. And down at the dock, those indicators are mirrored. So you'll also have, I believe you have a hard drive indicator down here, but maybe you don't. Oh, floppy indicator. So some of the indicators are mirrored down here to this display. And I think we're just going to have to reboot. Oh, I paused it too soon. It loaded. And now it's finding hardware, because of course it is. I don't think I've ever plugged the dock into this laptop before. So anyone that's ever used 98 knows the minute you plug anything into it, you're going to get this message. And unless it's something really generic like a keyboard or mouse, you're going to get this message, which says, please insert the disk labeled Windows 98 CD-ROM, which, guess what, you never have handy. So we're just going to hit cancel. And this is the other thing with passive matrix displays. You'll lose your mouse cursor all the time with these. So that's a thing that used to happen. You got a PCI to PCI to PCI bridge, which is probably also part of that docking station. So we're just going to hit cancel. Because, you know, just personally as a collector of this technology, the docking station is something I try to avoid like the plague. If I can use the built-in internals of the computer or the floppy without having to get involved with this, that's the absolute best way to do it. Now, after a long wait, the computer's configured itself for dock 1. And we should get that lovely Windows startup noise. Oh, no, more hardware. Ah, oh, come on. I thought we were done with this. Hey. And the ultimate thing that makes me laugh about Windows is after all that stuff, and a lot of it I didn't even get on camera because, yeah, if you want to see Windows 98, plenty of other people done better videos than I'm ever going to do. It now asks me to restart. So this is just an example of things I'm thankful, as much as I love nostalgia, I'm thankful aren't a thing anymore. And now it's going to restart. So, yeah, I won't bore you with that again. Alright, here we are at yet another neat restart because I dared to change the resolution. Which I don't know why the resolution's different on the docked mode than the non-docked mode, but it is. So now we restart yet again. I probably should have checked this before I tried to film a video on it and made sure the dock worked with this computer. But I didn't do that, so now we get to do another... Oh, look at that, it actually restarted real quick. It must have just restarted the Windows program. So now we're at the right resolution, which is nice. Because remember, Windows ran on top of DOS in 98. It wasn't its own thing like it is in NT. And now we just keep hitting cancel and cancel and cancel until we get a desktop. There's only one time that time. How nice. How nice. Now, this is the original operating system as it laid, or as it lays, or whatever, from the guy that I bought it off of. And, yeah, this is it. This is like a time capsule to what the late 90s, early 2000s were like. I'm not going to poke around too much in documents or whatever, but yeah, there's some emulators on here, MP3s from back in the day, Winamp, you know, in an era before iPods and iTunes. And for those who aren't familiar with Windows 98, which is probably, you know, the one out of the 2 viewers this video is most likely going to get, you got your start menu here, and you got your programs, and I guess this guy's name was Chris, and you got all your stuff. And it took a long time to boot up because we're running on a spinning disk and a dock it's never been with and all kinds of other fun stuff. But yeah, this is the passive matrix display, and the fact this guy put emulators on here makes me smile, because this is probably the worst machine to try to play video games on. Just moving my cursor makes it disappear, and you won't see that on the other laptop. So that's something unique to the passive matrix displays. So I'm not going to do too much here because, again, like I said earlier, plenty of other people have done Windows 98 videos that did way better jobs than I'm going to do. But I mainly wanted to show this because Windows does have some support for the laptop's dock. You can eject the PC, which I'm not going to do because who knows how many more times it'll want me to reboot if I try that. But the main thing I want to show you is, unlike many laptops and desktops of the era that had BIOS where you'd go in and set up your hardware settings, this has a utility that IBM put out for the ThinkPad where you do it up, and I'm looking through my phone to see the screen, and some of the titles got screwed up, but I think it's this program. And this is where you change all the settings you would change in BIOS for this machine. And you can click on these different icons. It'll give you different views of the laptop. And this is a nice feature if you're not comfortable with BIOS and you just kind of want to really quickly go through and change things. This is a really annoying feature if you don't run Windows. And it's one of the things that makes Linux on this laptop a bit of a challenge. And one of my favorite things to do, off camera, of course, because, you know, I bore the internet enough already, is to install Linux on these things. And I've been trying to at least install it to where I can get a working network card to where I can SSH into the server, but I haven't had any luck with that yet. And part of the reason is I can't get this computer to recognize the card bus as a 32-bit card bus, which if you hit this option and hit PC card director, never mind, if you hit this option and hit advanced, it doesn't really give you the ability to change any of that. And I'm pretty sure it can run 32-bit PC cards, but I'm not 100% sure. So if anyone has more info on this than I obviously have, if you could leave a comment, hey, that'd be great. I'd love to know. Till then, I'm just going to keep trying, you know. And then you got, you know, depending on what you want to run, you can only have so many things turned on from so many ports at once. So sometimes if you want to turn on your serial, you're going to have to lose something else. I think serial's one of the things, or infrared's a good example. So let's go to infrared, which I got to find the cursor. These passive matrix displays are great, aren't they? All right. Oh, that's a neat feature. Tells you where your cursor is. Keep moving it, move it. Oh, that's not the button I wanted. Oh boy, Windows 98, man. Windows 98. Infrared. So I believe if I turn this on... Nope, it didn't cause something else to shut off. Well, there are things on here, though, trust me, that when you turn them on, it causes everything to shut off. And you got to have an operating system that supports this utility to change these settings. So if you're running Linux or something like that, you're not going to be able to change your settings unless you pop a Windows drive in and do it that way. And even the onboard diagnostics utility won't let you change that. And the only thing you can really change in there on the pre-operating system BIOS screen, if you will, is your start order. And another fun fact about these machines is they will not boot off a CD drive, even with the internal CD. You got to plug in the external floppy in order to pull that off. So I'm going to shut this baby down, and I'll show you some of the other accessories these machines came with. Goodbye and good riddance, Windows 98. So here we have the accessories, and the big one here's the floppy drive that plugs into the CD-enabled models. I got marbles in my mouth today. Models with this connector here. Looks like a little scuzzy connector. A battery as promised, and the hard disk out of one of the other machines. And I mean, the modularity is one of the really nice things about these laptops that very few laptops nowadays have, unless it's like a Panasonic Toughbook or some kind of gaming machine where you got some kind of expandability and modularity, but it's not very common. So this here's the final ThinkPad I'm going to show you for today. This is the ThinkPad 760E with CD drive, so unlike mine that's just a floppy, this one actually has a CD capable chassis, and it has a 20X drive in it. This one's running on a CF card because I just can't trust these old old hard disks anymore. They're starting to all kind of wear out and fail around the same time. This has a high resolution display in it. I believe it's a 1020 board by 768 panel, and this is active, so there's no contrast adjustment and you don't lose your cursor every time it moves. This one here has a Fedora Core CD in the CD tray. And I'm trying to install that on here, but right now it has Red Hat Linux, which I cannot get to load X, so I don't have a desktop, but I can still do terminal and whatnot. I also don't have PC card support. Now I'm going to plug in the external floppy drive and show you just all the complicated mess it takes just to boot this thing off a CD. So hold on a second, I'll set that up. Alright, we're back and we have the external floppy plugged in, and that's good to go. And now when I go to boot it, and you can see the power adapter there on my desk is a little messy. There's our power brick, by the way. One of many different kinds they made that were compatible with the series. And I'm going to fire this up, and you'll see it'll boot off that floppy, and then you can boot it from CD. So, and I'm sorry for all the noise in the background there, just moving the chair. And this is how you actually boot it, because you don't have BIOS support to boot off your CD drive. So this all-in-one floppy is a great tool for vintage computer enthusiasts. That's a tongue twister there. Just put down there. And there's all your options. And you got to hit it twice. Always hit it twice, then it'll boot. There's Fedora. There's the CD drive working. Hard disk drive working. And yeah, it's going to try booting. It'll give me the X works on this, but I haven't been able to get it to install. I think there's just some option I'm not selecting properly. And yeah, well, that's pretty much wraps up for the part where these things are going to be running. Finally, we come to the conclusion about the 760 series of ThinkPads. Now, I might be biased, and I certainly am about these because I love these machines. I grew up with this one there, which is running DOS right now. And by the way, all three of these are running off their batteries. Not one of them's plugged into the wall. But these are just well-made laptops that stood the test of time. As far as usability, modern usability, I guess, it's not very good. Getting the internet to work on one of these is pretty much a pipe dream outside of doing it through Windows. You'd probably have to go find the specific hardware that's era appropriate. Make sure you get something that's going to work with a PC card. Mess around with that configuration utility until you get the PC cards to work. And then deal with Windows 98, 95, or 3.1 if you're a real glutton for punishment. And all the ridiculous things you got to do to get things to work under those operating systems. And even when you do all of these things, it's not going to even load YouTube. Google will probably work. You can still type on these. You can use floppy disks, play old DOS games, play old Windows games. And Linux is a little bit usable, but not really on the internet. So if you want an offline Linux machine for someone who's just a beginner to learn command prompt, or I'm sorry, terminal, that's a good laptop for that. But sadly, out of all my vintage computers, These are some of the least useful in modern use cases. And it makes me kind of sad because these are among the best built. I mean, this laptop here survived me as a child, and I was not always careful with my things at that age. And these two laptops survived a lifetime of professional use. The one on the right, I believe, belonged to a professor, and the one on the left to a student. So these are pretty good machines, and even the finish, which is this rubberized stuff that's not well known for holding up, it hasn't held up horribly on two of the machines, and on the third one it's just kind of starting to get a little bit nasty. The onboard displays and function keys allowed you to do a lot of things with the computer that, made it to where you didn't have to have a billion different dedicated buttons. Some people see it as a good thing, some as a bad. And the ability to switch out your CD for a floppy, or to put dual batteries in, or put in another hard drive, really made these machines very useful to certain people that could take advantage of that degree of flexibility. So all in all, I gotta say, these are solid machines. Would I recommend buying one for your computer collection if you have a computer collection? Maybe. I mean, if you like DOS and Windows and all that stuff and you don't need the internet, these are fun to play around on, but I recommend getting a CF card to a mini IDE adapter for them. And don't expect them to do anything quickly. They're running on Pentium 1 chips. In best case scenario, you're going to get a machine that can run an MXX chip at 166 megahertz. But that's absolute best case scenario. All these machines are running just regular Pentiums, I believe. And they also get really hot too. As a side note, you could cook eggs on the bottom of these things once they've been turned on. And it's not even doing difficult work. It's just the fact they're on that makes them warm up. But thank you everyone for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you guys did, maybe I'll make another video. I got lots of obsolete stuff around here to set up for you guys and show off. I mean, I got I got some real interesting stuff that'll probably be coming down the pipe for you soon too. So anywho, this is Flymaster J-Man signing off. Have a good day and keep them old computers running.